We're live.
So we're getting lots of comments about being late. They're saying, well, I'm waiting. Is this happening? Is it off? A lot of people very miffed. I'm so sorry. Alex was putting his makeup on and it takes at least an hour.
Give it a rest.
So
give it a rest,
we are past the 7 o'clock point. So I do apologise. But we are here.
The 8 o'clock point.
Well, actually, Always Poo says, no Chloe again, I see. I told you last week, Always Poo, that she's away for about a month. She's travelling. I can't magic her out of thin air. But it's nice to know that we're loved on this stream, isn't it?
Indeed.
So, anyway, anywho, right. I'm delighted to say, though, that, you know, whilst we have got a Chloe-shaped hole in our hearts, we have got Alex Armstrong on the podcast. And of course, we've got Younes Sadaghiani as well, who joins us and who I had on my, well, it's not my show. I shouldn't call it my show. I was actually covering someone's show. I was covering Neil Oliver at the weekend and Younes was on the show. And we uploaded the interview onto Reasoned and it's had a really, really good reception. So Younes, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, someone's commented saying, let me on Reasoned. Send us a video. Anyone that wants to audition for Reasoned is always welcome to. The email you need is info@reasoned.uk. I repeat, info@reasoned.uk. Someone's saying, Chloe is lovely. Are you trying to give me a complex, all of you? Am I not enough? This is worse than when my alcoholic father abandoned us. I feel heartbroken. Alan says, Younes, great videos, keep them coming. That's great. Thank you very much to everyone for joining. And I apologise for being an hour and 10 minutes late, but we'll move swiftly on. So, in the news this week, there has been, well, a fair bit, I think it's safe to say. I have been busy and the general election rattles on. And on Sunday, Nigel Farage was on the Sly News programme with Trevor Phillips, which is their breakfast offering. And Nigel was challenged by Sly News, by Trevor Phillips, on his assertion that Britain has a real problem, that's Nigel's words, that I said has been identified with crystal clarity since October 7th on the streets of this country, weekend in, weekend out. And I said, I can't understand how anyone can't see the glaring threat before us. By the way, it transpires that under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, Trevor Phillips was kicked out of the Labour Party because he said things extremely similar to what Nigel Farage has said about integration and assimilation into British life by British Muslims. And I don't think there's anything remotely controversial about that, especially when you consider these stats. So, young British Muslims aged between 16 to 24 who believe that ex-Muslims should be put to death for apostasy, is 33%. 33%. British Muslims who believe homosexuality should be illegal, 52%. British Muslims who do not believe Hamas committed murder and rape on October 7th, 75%. British Muslims who believe America was behind 9/11, 31%. British Muslims who believe Jews were behind 9/11, 7%. British Muslims who believe Al-Qaeda was behind 9/11, which they were, 4%. British Muslims who believe Diana was killed because she wanted to marry a Muslim, well, more Muslims believe this than those who believe she was killed in an accident. British Muslims who want to restrict free speech to protect religious sensitivities, so blasphemy laws essentially, 62%. British Muslims who believe there should be no pictures of Muhammad shown, reminiscent, of course, of the Batley Grammar School teacher who is still in hiding all these years on, 52%. That's half of British Muslims. British Muslims who identify as Islamists and supporter of terrorism, 9%. British Muslims who sympathise with terrorism, 15%. British Muslims who identify as Muslim first and British second, 81%. French Muslims who identify as Muslim first and French second, 46%. German Muslims who identify as Muslim first and German second, 66%. So I repeat the British stat. British Muslims who identify as Muslim first and British second, 81%. So it's quite clear to me that Nigel Farage was absolutely bang on to suggest that multiculturalism and assimilation into society by British Muslims in isolation is not an overwhelming success story. Does that make me a massive racist, Younes?
No, not at all. And the stats that you just read has actually shocked me. I know the problem was bad, but I didn't know
Yeah,
it was this bad. And I've been saying this all along, Muslims, they don't really care because they feel like Islam should overtake everything else, and they don't, you need just, you can trust your eyes, right? Just go and walk down East Ham or just
yeah,
go and walk down Brick Lane and you see so many people and it's so clear that so many of them don't even speak English.
yes,
And obviously they immigrated here and you're walking down the street and you're like to yourself, am I walking in London? Like, is this really London or is this Islamabad? And they don't even make an effort to adapt and assimilate because they think that their religion is supreme, which begs the question, why did you immigrate in the first place?
yeah. Well, Younes, let me put a viewer's question to you because Alan says, I've just made Alan's comment absolutely ginormous, but Alan says, what is the chance of Muslims implementing Sharia law in England? Could it happen? Do you actually think that would you say there are a lot of British Muslims in the United Kingdom who would like that to happen?
I'm sure there is a big percentage, but I won't let it happen. And I hope other people join the movement and don't let it happen because I really don't understand. If these people wanted Sharia law, why didn't they just stay in the country they came from? They could have just stayed in Pakistan or Afghanistan. Taliban is a big proponent of Sharia law, and so
Yeah,
was Saudi Arabia before 2018. And Sharia law includes chopping hands off, chopping feet off, killing women for adultery. Women get killed for being raped. So this is all part of Sharia law. So do you want to really implement something like that in this country? For me, I just don't understand it. The ungratefulness and the lack of logic and thinking is just astounding.
yeah,
These people escaped the country that implemented Sharia law, and that's what took their society down. And that's
yeah,
why they came in their millions to Europe to escape that. And I just don't understand how they cannot bridge this in their own minds that Sharia law and Islam is bad for society. I have nothing against Muslims. You can go and pray 5 times a day. You can be a spiritual person. Everyone reaches spirituality in their own way. Some people meditate. Some people go to the church. Some people go and work out. Some people go to the mosque. Fine. I have nothing against Muslims that use Islam as a way to reach their spirituality. However, they just don't seem to understand that religion and politics shouldn't mix. And as I said on your show, Islam is a deeply
mm,
political religion. It
mm,
seeks to govern. And people are brainwashed, especially from certain backgrounds, such as Pakistan, Afghanistan, some Iraqis, some Syrians. They are really brainwashed to the point that, and I read a study somewhere that actually British Muslims born in the UK are more extreme than the ones born in Pakistan. And it
Yeah.
makes
yeah,
me
Yeah.
think these people, they did not see with their own eyes what Sharia law and Islam does to the society. So maybe that's
yeah.
why they're so blindsided.
Well, Alex Robert on Twitter says this is why I'm voting Conservative. It's the only sane choice and the only resistance we have. I mean, I don't wish to speak about private conversations, but I think you've reached similar conclusions.
Yeah. So, look, we haven't got many options. British politics is a two-party state, right? There is Conservative and there's Labour. It's very rare there is a third governing party. We've only had that once since World War II with the Liberal Democrats and, Conservative Pact in 2010 to get the majority over the line. The reality is, and look, I'm a natural Conservative voter, but I have desperately wanted to vote for the Reform Party because they
Yeah,
are truly conservative, and I know a lot of you will agree with me on that one. The problem we've got is that if you vote Reform, and this is the reality, I've come to realise this. If I vote for Reform, I'm going to put Labour in government, or I'm going to put a Liberal Democrat in my seat. It's going to be those 5,000 votes that make the difference in this general election. My major concern is the damage that Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are going to do to this country over 5, probably 10 years before the right are able to rally behind a single group of right-wing real conservatives, because the Tory party's flooded with wet conservatives. I do also worry, and I share Reform voters' worry, that voting Conservative gets you more of the same. And we have seen the worst immigration figures in the last 4 years than ever on record. So I totally feel their pain. But my worry is it will be worse under Labour. So, we're stuck between two evils. But the reality is Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are going to be worse. And with my conscience, I have to say, Reform aren't going to win, and they're going to put Labour in power. And I have to now vote for a party that's going to keep Keir Starmer and his Shamima Begum fan club out.
Yeah, I mean, Younes, this was from the latest set of local elections. So not too long ago, it was on the 2nd of May, so earlier this month, at the start of this month. And in the West Midlands mayoral election, a guy called Ahmed Yaqub stood, and Ahmed's slogan for his campaign was "Lend Gaza your vote." And that's what it says here. And behind him, Younes, you can see a derelict building. And I just wonder if that's a metaphor, if that's actually a pretty good visualization or a representation of where that kind of religious sectarianism would actually take this country.
Yes, and I don't understand how there is people, even the councillor leads, like you're standing as a councillor or as an MP or
Yeah,
as a
Green
mayor.
Party. Yeah.
Yeah, in the United Kingdom, and all you talk about is Gaza. Like, what's that got to do with anything? How is that going to solve the local population's issues? And as you said,
Yeah.
the building behind him is a great reflection. And I actually know this guy because I've been following him on Instagram for a while.
Ah.
And again, he is part of that group, look, I'm a quarter Pakistani myself, right? My
Yeah.
granddad was from Pakistan, right? But Pakistanis, they have this mentality that they just stay within their own group, and they have this group mentality. They support each other, they help each other, they hire each other. And I guarantee you, like 99% of the people that voted for him were probably the Pakistani or the Indian community in that
Yeah. Oh,
region.
yeah.
And
Can I make
same
one
thing with
really?
Sadiq Khan.
Yeah.
Just
Same
make.
thing with Sadiq Khan. The reason why
Yeah.
Sadiq Khan keeps getting elected because he rides on that Islamic vote, which is more than
Yeah.
20% of London now. So he's easily confirmed 20% of London because they're all Muslims. And he takes the share from the Labour, and that's how he wins the mayoral elections so comfortably. And this is the problem I have. These people are playing identity politics. They always talk about, racism, Gaza, we're the ones that are being oppressed, but they're the ones that actually play identity politics. They're the ones that always say black, white, Pakistani, Muslim, Indian,
Mm.
So they're the ones that are causing the division. And at the end of it, instead of trying to make a difference in their own constituents, they ride on the Gaza votes. Like, what's that got to do with anything? I really don't get it. Like, you're supposed to be a mayor for a city in the United Kingdom, and you're talking about Gaza. Like, are you telling me the taxpayers' money is going to go towards the rebuilding of Gaza? I don't think so.
Yeah, Alex, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I want all the viewers watching at this moment. So, Darren, if you could really quickly just go back to that picture, because there's a really important point to make here. Look at the picture behind the poster. That is where Britain is, right? It is crumbling. Our infrastructure is crumbling. Our cities are overrun. And you've got a guy campaigning, the billboard below it, for a country that has nothing to do with the United Kingdom. It's not our war. It's not our war to stop, and it's not our war to be involved in. We're just supporting an ally. The conflict here is the juxtaposition is incredible. You can't make it up. While Britain crumbles behind him, he's there saying, "Vote for Gaza," while your country and your city crumbles. This is absolutely, as you correctly said, identity politics to the max. We saw Angela Rayner the other day begging Muslims for their vote.
Well, we're going to get into the Labour Party. We're going to get into the Labour Party. I want to talk about this video from Iran because Younes, obviously Iran is an issue that's very dear to you, close to your heart. And there was this video. So it's two sets of protest groups, right? And then they end up having a scrap, and Iranian flags are, and I assume, Younes, that's the original Iranian flag under the Shah, and not the modern day Islamic Republic one. But there's a fight going on the streets of London, and then there's a follow up from this, and it's from Potkin Azar Mir from on Twitter. And he says, can you believe this? A useless, timid Met Police Service Brent have not made a single arrest of the Iranian regime thugs who attacked dissidents in Wembley last night. So we're seeing actually these clashes between Islamists and those who are opposed to what they've done to the state of Iran play out on the streets of London with people in serious critical condition. You've got ambulance services working there. You know, the man next to this woman here looks in a very serious way. And this is happening in London, right? And the police just turn a blind eye. It's too controversial to get involved in it. Do you see this, Younes, as another sign that political correctness is allowing rampant racism and actually rampant, frankly, foreign wars to be carried out on the streets of London?
Yeah, but also weak leadership. Because, first of all, I don't understand anyone that supports the Islamic Republic of Iran and supports Raisi. Why are you in London in the first place? Why are you not back in Iran? If you love Raisi so much, if you love the Islamic
Yes.
Republic so much, why are you here? And the second part of this is the pathetic metropolitan police that seem to have no power, and they always seem to side with evil. Because, you know, a friend of mine, Niak Korbani, the one that holds the sign,
Yeah.
Hamas are terrorists.
Hamas. Yeah.
Hamas are terrorists. He's Iranian, and he goes in middle of the protest. He's holding a sign. He's not provoking anyone, and people are attacking him and beating him up. And instead of police stopping the Palestinian protesters, they come and arrest him. And he's been arrested like 10 times already, to the point that it's gone to court, and the court has ruled that actually Niak Korbani is right. So I just feel like I don't know what's up with the Metropolitan Police. I don't know who they get their orders from. And again, it's a symptom of political correctness and weak leadership. And I was just on another podcast this morning, and I spoke about this on there, that I just do not know why the United Kingdom, the United Nations, give countries such as the Islamic Republic of Iran so much respect. These people are terrorists. These people are the ones that caused the war in Gaza. These people are the ones that despise you. They want to destroy you.
Yeah.
You know, and you hold a minute silence for Raisi in the United Nations. He's the butcher of Iran for a reason. He
Yes.
killed tens of thousands of people for no reason whatsoever, for just having an opinion. He's hanged them personally. And you're holding a 1 minute silence for him in the United Nations and also in some parts of the United Kingdom. And instead of, you know, arresting the people beating the poor Persian girl, you go and arrest her instead. Like, for me, it's just ridiculous. And this is all goes back to my argument: political correctness, weak leadership, and they just don't know how to act and how to be firm. You know, and trust me, the Iranian regime is sitting in Iran right now. They're laughing at us.
Yeah. Oh,
Look
yeah,
at them.
absolutely,
Can I
unquestionably.
just can I say
Yeah.
who is in charge of policing in London? It's Sadiq Khan. You know, he
Yeah.
is the police and crime commissioner for the city. He
Yeah.
gives orders. You know, he can change the direction of the Met Police, but he obviously doesn't want to, because these are his voters. These are the people that vote for Sadiq Khan, and he's not going to go around telling them that you can't go out and protest for Gaza, because he is pro what's going on. Let's be clear about that. It plays into his messaging very, very well. So it's really important that people remember that Sadiq Khan is not detached from the police, despite the fact that he doesn't pretend. He puts this false pretense that he's not in control. He is.
Yeah, and so this other clip, just to highlight how weak and supine the police have been. This is outside of His Majesty's Prison Doncaster, where a set of Palestinian protesters that you can see on screen there were escorting. They weren't meant to be, by the way, but are escorting two female police officers who are about as ineffectual as if you had Frank Spencer in the police force marching people around. But They're basically being shepherded across the perimeter of this prison by what I describe as these thugs covering their faces, shouting from the river to the sea and all these other things. So you get the hint, free, free Palestine, and they're pushing them around. And it's because one of their mates is in the prison. And the police just seem so ineffectual until actually it's a white man with a shaved head that's flying a St. George's cross, right? Then they suddenly spring into action and starts getting serious and realizing that they can actually enforce the law. I mean, if I was to run around and have a protest outside of a prison, I'm pretty sure you can bet your bottom dollar that the police would take umbrage with it and deal with it pretty damn quickly. But the reason I mention this is because it's not just isolated to London, right? This is an issue that's going on in police forces up and down the country, where police are too scared to do anything about certain protests because they are too politically correct and they may be deemed racist. It's exactly the same mess that got us into the crisis that we saw in Rotherham, in Oldham, in Telford, where young girls were systemically raped by primarily Pakistani Muslims. And we turned a blind eye to it because we were too scared of being called racist. The Metro Radio Arena bombing, the security guard that was on duty there saw the Syrian heritage bloke who blew himself up actually walk in, look suspicious with a backpack, and didn't challenge him because he was scared of being accused of racism. This is where this is getting us, and I'm so worried about it. And before we get on to Labour, actually, Alex, so don't touch on them, but before we get on to Labour, it's serious, isn't it? It's already serious. And I wonder, it can only get worse, right, on the trajectory we're heading on.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse. You know, there already isn't enough going on to stop illegal immigration, let alone migration, which is now predominantly from South Asia, Pakistan, and places like that, which is where we're now getting our immigrants from. Let's bear that in mind. But Labour are going to have an amnesty for those people. And we know that most of them coming here are here because they want something from us, not just they're economic migrants, first of all, but they'll be here permanently. And Labour have no deterrent. At least with the Rwanda policy, there is some form of deterrence. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's what I would do. I would go further, personally. But it's better than what Labour are going to put forward. Now, the reality is that boat crossings have been lower because of the bad weather. And if we're going to have a scorcher of a summer, you'll see thousands more of them.
Oh, well, they're at record levels already this year. Yeah.
Well, exactly. So we know this year's possibly going to be a record year. And we're also going to see a record. There's also a lot of people leaving this country now because, again, it's a complete state from top to bottom. So the more people that leave, the more the government will say, and the next government will likely say, let's bring in some more migration to fill those gaps rather than solve this problem long term.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And on Twitter, Polyglot said, I'm frightened for the future of my children. And I think a lot of people share that sentiment. And I think that's something that's only going to get worse. I mean, this guy here, pictured here on screen right now, wearing the Hamas T-shirt and venerating October 7th, which of course was the horrible massacre of Jews in Israel by Hamas. And he's walking the streets. I think he looks safer than most Jews do on the streets of London, to be perfectly bloody honest, walking down Oxford Street without a care in the world, glorifying Hamas. Younes, do you see this problem getting worse? Do you think actually the weak leadership that we have is going to embolden these people?
Yes, and you touched on something. When you talked about the Pakistani sex rape gangs, when someone like Tommy Robinson spoke about it, instead of actually going after the gangs, they went after Tommy Robinson and they threw him in jail and they took him to court for speaking facts. And now, many years later, and we know he was right. And the thing is, the arrogance is just astounding. It's like someone wearing the swastika and walking down the street. That would be arrested straight away, And these people, they think that Hamas is a resistance group, and they're fighting God's battle. And again, it's all intertwined with religion. And as I said, weak leadership, political correctness, and the police won't do anything because they're like, well, this is opinion, yeah. But if someone wore a swastika, then you would arrest them. So, it's not just an opinion. You can't be supporting terrorist groups. And I feel like we've got so lax. I saw another video of a guy in the Palestinian march waving the ISIS flag. And he was saying
Yes.
in Arabic that
Or
all
the
Jews
Hamas
should die.
headbands. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Hamas headband, and he was saying all Jews should. And he was literally outside number 10. This is the funny thing. There's police there with machine guns and everything. The guy's just waving it in their face. And now let's reverse that. Let's say there was a neo-Nazi march and there was
Yeah.
people waving the swastika. I guarantee you, within 5 minutes, that whole protest would stop.
Yeah.
So again,
100%.
political correctness, we don't have the guts to call out Islamism because we are scared to come across as racist. And I think that's ridiculous. Okay, we should stop this
Can I,
nonsense. And that's why I created my page to speak about this specific issue.
Yeah, and you've been brilliant. Someone's commented actually, Younes, saying on Twitter, I believe it was. I've lost it now. Younes says, by the way, you are an extremely brave and wise man. I applaud you, and I concur with that. Alex, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, originally we started this whole topic off with Nigel Farage and what he said
Yes.
being deemed a racist and Islamophobe. And Trevor Phillips, the guy who interviewed him, is pretty guilty of that, saying we shouldn't expect Muslims to integrate. But there's one
Yes.
other person on the left. There's one other person on the left that never gets called a racist or an Islamophobe. And guess who that is? Tony Blair. Tony Blair wrote a massive article in the Times in 2019, I believe it was. 2016, sorry. Saying that this is the most dangerous ideology on the planet and it will not be contained, so it has to be defeated. Those are his words, Tony Blair's words. Was there this massive condemnation from the left about Tony Blair? No, he was absolutely accepted for that. And so the bigotry, and this, I think I did my reasoned video on this the other day. If you guys haven't seen it, please go and watch it. The bigotry towards people on the right is part of the problem here. As soon as you say something that they don't agree with politically, they will call you a racist. The lowest form of politics, just demean you. But when they say it, they're okay. And this is the problem we have. It's freedom of speech for some, not for everyone.
Younes?
And let's not forget that Tony Blair invaded Iraq illegally, and he ended up killing a million Iraqis.
Yeah,
he was
that
the
was
one that
okay
actually,
for the left.
Yeah, exactly. And he's the one that actually kickstarted this mass migration from Afghanistan and Iraq, even in the 90s and early 2000s. So he's the one that's responsible for war crimes. He's the one that's responsible for killing the most amount of Muslims as a prime minister. And because he's the left darling and everyone loves him, no one says anything about him. But Nigel Farage, he hasn't killed a person. Well, he's the racist. The hypocrisy is just astounding.
Spot on.
One of the comments earlier was talking about the fact that if you are actually calling for votes on behalf of a foreign state, that you should be banned by the Electoral Commission from standing. Believe me, I've had my own fair share of run-ins with the Electoral Commission, and you haven't got a hope in hell of that ever happening. But what I would say is that leads us nicely on to the Labour Party, because the question is, right, you're seeing them at least 20 points ahead in polls. Various polls say various things, but it's about that, right? The benchmark now is about 20 points ahead in the polls, which would suggest an outright majority. And now we're just trying to determine what the size of that outright majority is. So let's have a listen as to what those who've come here illegally want to happen, and why they actually support a vote by the British people for the Labour Party in the name of, well, keeping them here, essentially. My play. Oh, it's like being back at GB News, tech gremlins.
Labour would scrap it all together. For Damil and many others living in fear of being removed, there's now the possibility it may never happen. Now we've got the general election coming, no flights before that. Do you feel more optimistic about your chances of being able to stay in the UK?
Maybe after election we are happy with this because the Labour Party will be on next. I don't know what is going on there. Still we are worried about these things.
So he's from India, right? Last time I checked, India have a space program. You know, India is one of the wealthiest economies that's growing like you wouldn't believe. It's a country that we're desperate for a trade agreement with because they are growing at such a rapid rate. I don't see why, in any reasonable, rational scenario, we have asylum seekers, so-called asylum seekers. He's not an asylum seeker, he's an economic migrant coming here from India. And he says, I want the Labour Party so I can stay here. That tells you everything that you need to know. And then Liz Kendall was on Sly News too, and she is the shadow business secretary, I want to say. Maybe not.
I think so.
And she was on Sly News with Trevor Phillips on the same show Nigel was on, and listen to her trying to explain what Labour's migration policy actually is. Remember, these are the people 20 points ahead in opinion polls. She's Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, I beg your pardon.
Let me just ask you one quick last question, because I talked to the Home Secretary about the Rwanda scheme. I know you don't like it and all that. We don't need to go over that. I just want
there
to know...
isn't really a scheme, is there?
Okay, yeah. I just want to know something about Labour's position on what would happen if you came into office. There is a growing problem of thousands who have crossed the channel already, but they aren't allowed to seek asylum under the legislation that's been passed. If you came into office, you wouldn't send those people to Rwanda. You won't send them home, the Afghans and Iranians, for example. What are you going to do with them? And we're talking tens of thousands now.
Our first priority is to set up a new border security command to crack down on those criminal gangs. And we will have those new specialist investigators.
I understand the general point, but what are you going to do with this group of tens of thousands of people?
We will drive down that backlog.
But what are you going to do with the people who are already here?
We are spending £8 million a day funding people in hotels.
Yes.
We have got the highest number in the first 5 months of this year ever coming over in the boats.
Your colleagues have said this several times on this programme. What are you going to do about this group of people who currently are in the country, who have no status? You say you won't send them to Rwanda. You can't send them back. What are you going to do with them?
We have got to drive down that asylum backlog, and we have set forward...
That doesn't answer the question at all. She deliberately evades the question.
Bring that backlog down.
Anyway, she goes on like that, evading the question, talking like a bloody robot, typical New Labour style of approaching politics. And she isn't answering the question, Younes, because Labour would grant amnesty to all illegal migrants who have arrived here, because it's just easier to do it like that. They don't want to send people to third-party countries because that would be viewed as not very nice, not very progressive. So the nice and kind thing to do is to let people stay here, even if they might be jihadis.
And this is basically the future voters. So they actually have a dark strategy, because they in the future they're gonna vote for them. So they have every vested interest to allow these people in the country. However, this takes me to my second point, where I think, institutions such as the United Nations, especially the Human Rights Council, have outlived their purpose. Because the countries such as United Kingdom, they have a responsibility to take immigrants from other countries. But it's ironic, because Saudi Arabia didn't take a single refugee from Iraq and Syria during the ISIS war, not a single one. They deported every single one of them. Neither did United Arab Emirates. You go to Dubai, it's like heaven. Why? Because they're smart. They only allow people in that will rest, and that will work, that will adapt and assimilate. And, same with Afghanistan and Pakistan, their neighbors. When Taliban took over, 1 million Afghanistanis fled Afghanistan to go to Pakistan. Pakistan deported every single one of them. And all these people end up coming to Western Europe, including the United Kingdom. And I just don't understand for the life of me, what do we owe these people? Why do we have to take them in? All right, your country is war-torn, go to the neighboring country. But then the problem is your neighboring countries don't take you, and they know we're soft. They really know we're soft. They know we have an amazing welfare program, and it's even going to get better with Labour. So they're like, oh my God, in my country, I couldn't afford a house. I was living on $5 a day or even less. Now I can go to another country, get free housing, get benefits, not work for many years to come, have as many kids as I want. My wife's going to end up getting child benefit. And it's just If you think about it from their perspective, it's like a golden ticket. So why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? If you were in their positions, you would do it as well. And that's why I mean the laws need to change. We had our time taking immigrants in this country. There was a time after World War II where United
Yes.
Kingdom needed a lot of immigrants. They took a lot of Indians in, even in the 90s and early 2000s. But that boat has sailed. We
Yeah.
have had already taken
I
too
mean,
many immigrants, and we need to change the policies.
boat being the operative word, but there's one question that I really want you to respond to. Sticking on the theme of Labour, it's going to be very Labour heavy from now on. But Yvette Cooper very famously did this, where she tweeted out a picture and said, we must do more to help refugees. Please sign this petition urging the government to act. And this graphic says things can only get better, right? Ironically. And it says vote Labour, get Gaza at the top. But Younes, one of our questions from a viewer on Instagram actually says, why aren't we taking Palestinian refugees? Tell us what the pitfalls would be of taking refugees from Gaza.
Right. Well, first of all, Palestine was a state. It was a British mandate for Palestine. Palestinians are actually Arabs. Half of them are Egyptian because Gaza was a concentration camp outside of Egypt. And the West Bank are Jordanians. And majority of the people born in the West Bank, they have a Jordanian birth certificate. So there was actually no such thing as Palestine, contrary to popular belief. The funny thing is, their neighboring countries, such as Egypt and Jordan, they are not taking a single Palestinian. Egypt could have stopped this war with Israel if they opened the borders. But the border is stronger than the border they have with Israel.
Oh, yeah, it's
And,
huge. Sky high.
yeah, and again, it goes back to my first point. Your neighboring countries don't take you, and they are of the same ethnicity as you. You know? So again, I just don't understand. I feel sorry for people that are in war-torn countries. Okay? I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be mean. I feel really sorry for them. But at the same time, I just don't understand what responsibility we have to
No.
save them when their own neighboring countries don't. And I think the international community should put pressure on their neighboring countries. Or maybe other
Yes.
countries like Eastern European countries. They are peaceful. They can go to Romania. They can go to Bulgaria. They can go to South America. They can go to some states in Africa. They can go to Central Asia. Why do they all have to travel to Western Europe or America?
Yeah. I mean, Thirsk on Instagram again, Alex, says Egypt and Jordan don't want them. Why would we? You know, why on earth would we? And we've got enough bloody problems as it is when it comes to Islamists in this country.
Yeah, but we actually know what the answer is to this. We know why the government are bringing them here. And this is happening all over the West, ironically, right? It's not just us. There's Germany, Sweden, America, you can count them. There is an agenda at a very high level of politics that is beyond anything we can vote for, that has been perpetuating a message that immigrants good, GDP per capita go up. You make more money, more immigrants, more jobs. Therefore, you have a bigger base of consumers to sell to. This is, unfortunately,
False.
the liberal elite. Whilst it is false, completely false, it's the liberal elite's agenda. They have been perpetuating it. And when I say liberal elite, I class the conservative leadership of this country as those people too, because they've done nothing to stop it. They've been full of hot air.
Oh no,
frankly.
David Cameron loved it.
Oh, well, I mean, he said he was going to cut the tens of thousands back all the way back in
But then so did Boris Johnson, Alex, right? What did Boris Johnson do?
And Priti Patel. Absolutely nothing. None of them have. So you have to ask yourself the question: why is it still happening? What is it that despite this being a massive vote winner, and it's the reason why Brexit happened. Let's get real. Apart from taking your sovereignty back, people wanted to stop immigration, but there is a concerted effort at the top level of our elite politicians that are forcing this onto us without any say, and it's going to continue on and on and on until people in this country just go, we've had enough, and we're going to push people over the edge. And what these people don't realize what they're doing is they are building a massive problem, which means we will get the furthest right government, a Geert Wilders style government, which people in this country will be up in arms about. But it will happen because you will have forced people's hands here. So you got to be careful.
Darren Grimes for Prime Minister. I'm. Do you know? I actually, yes, I agree with everything that you just said. I think the two things are very much interlinked, right? You can't sovereignty and immigration. If you don't have control of your borders, you don't have sovereignty, right? You don't, and you're not a nation.
Control of our borders, Darren. We do have control of our borders.
Well, we do now.
Ultimate. We apart from the people coming over on the boats, let's not forget the vast number of immigrants are welcomed here by the government to the tune of 500,000. So let's not get this twisted here. The whole problem here is not that we can't control our borders; it's that we don't want to. Our government doesn't want to.
I mean, yes, the British people very much do want to, but yesterday the Irish government actually managed to, because you were talking there about how, leaving the illegal migration issue to one side. Yesterday, I was really struck by how the Irish actually showed a little bit of backbone, a little bit of mettle. And the Irish police actually said, basically, I don't give a shit what Britain says. I'm going to turn back the boats. So boats that came over from the UK, Irish police detected 50 people attempting to enter Ireland from the UK illegally last week. And the Garda had said they were refused leave to land and were returned to the United Kingdom across 4 days. So that's the Irish police refusing entry to 50 illegal migrants. That's something that we are repeatedly told in this country we do not have the wherewithal to do. We do not have the political will to do. We can't do it because of the ECHR. We can't do it because Rwanda can't get off the ground. And actually Ireland here proving it is very much possible if you have the political will within your own country to actually do it. So Younes, tell me, for the love of God, tell my frustrated viewers who feel like they're going out of their bloody minds, why do our leaders not do this? Why are they so scared to just turn back these boats of people who are not welcome here?
Because, as I said, Labour is looking after their votes. So it's usually the left-leaning parties that want immigration. Even in America, the Democrats are the ones that are all for the open border policy in the South. And I'm surprised that why Biden hasn't done anything, because you think it's bad in the UK and Europe. There's 10,000 people crossing the southern border in America every single day. And, when Biden was asked about it, he was like, well, they're undocumented immigrants, meaning we should document them. And these are people like escaping Venezuelan prisons, asylums, Colombia. So they're drug dealers, they're, dangerous people coming into America. And crime has risen ever since this has happened. And as I said, it's a dark strategy that they have because they think the more illegal immigrants or the more immigrants that comes to these countries, they will end up voting for Labour or they will end up voting for left-leaning politics. Mm-hmm. The problem I have is that the right-leaning parties are also very weak. They don't have the guts to call this out because they know the mainstream media will attack them and call them racist, call them xenophobic, and I'm so tired of it. And this is the thing. I believe in freedom of speech, and we should call things out as they are. The silent majority agrees with us. But the problem is the silent majority is staying silent. And as I said, what I'm trying to do with my page is to rise the silent majority, to break their silence.
Well, you are doing that. You're doing a very good job at that. There are two videos I want to play and then get reaction to them. We're almost at 50,000 viewers right now, so that's very good. Thank you very much to everyone watching at home and commenting along. So the MP for Bradford, we were talking earlier about whether or not you should be able to campaign for foreign countries in elections here in the United Kingdom. Well, should you be able to campaign in foreign tongues? Because this is Naz Shah, who some viewers will be aware of because she said some pretty outrageous things in the not too distant past. She's the MP for Bradford, which is a very highly Muslim populated part of the country, and she's campaigning in a foreign tongue here. And
जो हमारे काम अधूरे रह चुके हैं वो मैंने वापस आकर यहाँ पूरे करने हैं इंशाल्लाह तो जरूर प्लीज
inshallah, God willing, blah blah blah, and she's there and she says I said Nigel Farage was shouted down when he mentioned Bradford in particular, and he said you will struggle to find English speaking people in Bradford, and he was shouted down for it. Now then you've got Angela Rayner, whose constituency is in the northwest, and she is sat here in a room absolutely packed to the rafters with men. I can't see any women in this clip. And
again, because those doctors told me they went in with 10 suitcases.
She's speaking here about how she wants the Labour Party to ally itself with the likes of Qatar and other places to actually fight back against Israel.
I promise you, the Labour Party, including myself, is doing everything we can because nobody wants to see. And nobody wants to see what's happening. And only last week, the Labour Party were supporting the ICC. The Conservatives didn't support the ICC.
Right.
This general election on that issue, we can't affect anything when we're not in government. And I'll be honest with you, if Labour get into government, we are limited. I will be honest. I'm not going to promise you, because Biden, who's the US, who has way more influence, has only got limited influence in that. And Qatar, Saudi Arabia, all of these people, we are all working to stop what's happening at the moment. We want to see that.
So let's not forget that Qatar are funding and sheltering Hamas. I mean, the idea that the Labour Party are going to work with Qatar to get a solution against Israel, and they're also going to support this kangaroo ICC court to arrest a democratically elected leader and somehow compare them. It suggests that they're tantamount to each other. Hamas and Israel, a democratically elected government, and Hamas, a barbaric terrorist outfit that hasn't had an election since, 2005. I find it grotesque. I find it really deeply troubling. And this is what we've got to look forward to. This is the Labour Party. They will pander to the extreme elements of British life, the recent elements of British life who haven't been here for generations. And I'm deeply, deeply, deeply concerned about it, Alex.
Yeah, and I was shocked when I saw this video, frankly, and
Deputy Prime Minister.
Yeah, the Deputy Prime Minister, for God's sake. I mean, she really, it shocks me that she'll be a heartbeat away from being Prime Minister, and she'll be scratching on the door of 10 Downing Street as soon as she can. Let's get that straight. The reality is that even though she sat there and attacked the Conservatives, you know for sure that she, as she said straight afterwards, that there's nothing she can do anyway, even if she's in power, because guess what? It's got nothing to do with us. We can't stop the war in Gaza. She just admitted it. So while she's out campaigning for votes for Gaza, she also reiterates that there's nothing she can do because it has nothing to do with us. So the whole thing is a charade. They're buying votes. They're buying votes off of people who actually will not vote for her because she's, they're probably indie candidates in the area that are going to say, I'm going to stick up for Gaza. She's saying, well, I'm the Labour Party, and they're losing faith in Labour now. Even Labour are scared. They're only scared because they're losing the Muslim vote. What is it?
Yeah. All right. Younes?
Yes, I feel like these people are so naive or they're so malevolent. Because, there's this thing called the white knight syndrome, where these white liberals, they think they're doing the right thing, and they're so understanding, and they're so caring, and they love everyone so much.
Makes me
And
sick.
they strengthen the enemy through their naivety. Or they're really malevolent, and they know exactly what they're doing, but at the same time they know, well, these are our constituents, let's lie to them and let's get their votes. But what they don't know, and this has happened throughout history, and I'll give you an example. It happened in Iran in 1979, where the Islamists and the left-leaning neo-Marxists, they had a coalition against the Shah, and that coalition ended up being victorious against the Shah, and the Shah was overthrown. And guess what happened? When the Muslims and the neo-Marxists got into power, the Muslims killed the neo-Marxists. So they literally used them to get into power, and then they ended up killing them. And
that's a good historical reference. Yeah,
and that video is just exactly that. They will use you to get into power, and once they get into power, they'll kick you out, and they say, sorry, we don't want you.
Well,
And that's happening.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
happening with the Green Party in Leeds, where he said
yes,
Labour is not supporting it anymore. And it's happening with the other guy that you just showed. I forgot his name, with the broken down building behind him. He's not Labour
yes,
either, is he? Another
in the
party, and
West
he also
Midlands.
criticized Labour. Yeah, he
Uh,
criticized Labour. So it's funny. They
it was
support these guys, but at the end of it, they're the bad guys.
Mothin Ali was the Green Party Leeds City Council winner, and Jay on Twitter said, "Why is Angela Rayner talking to them like small children?" Which I think was quite amusing, because it is a bit like that. You know, we can't do anything. President Biden, President Biden in America. Oh, really? President Biden? I had no bloody idea, Angela. Thank you so much for enlightening me with that tidbit.
She shouts at people as well. She just shouts at them, and she
I think she's shouting, Alex, because she's actually quite nervous. She's quite scared, I think.
I agree. And I encourage people to watch that whole video, because actually when you watch it, you see how she is talking to them, but also how she hasn't got two brain cells to put together. She rubs two pennies and she thinks she's made a point, when actually even the people in the room are clearly getting bored, frankly.
Well, one woman, just sticking on the theme of Labour for a few more minutes, but one woman who will potentially not be standing as a Labour Prime Minister, as a Labour parliamentarian under Angela Rayner's deputy leadership, is Diane Abbott. Now, Diane Abbott, who is retiring as a Member of Parliament. Now, Diane once tweeted saying, "White people love playing divide and rule. We should not play their game. Hashtag tactic as old as colonialism." She was BLM before BLM. She had the grift fully placed out and set out before her from 1987, when she was elected as a Labour Party MP, the first black Labour Party the first black parliamentarian to sit in the House of Commons. And I'm not sure she's not done any favours for anyone, really, because I think she has been a horrible race baiter in many respects, and she's been entirely divisive, and I quite frankly am glad to see the back of her. But there was this really funny tweet that's by this Lord Flashheart, who said, to everyone gleefully mocking the downfall of Diane Abbott, why don't you just take a second and imagine if the shoe was on the other foot? And that, of course, is harking back to when Diane Abbott did wear two shoes on odd feet, right? She was wearing, I think actually they're different shoes, and they are. She's wearing the right shoe on the left foot. It's just bizarre. Anyway, she's not wearing the right shoes, and I don't know how she was walking about. She looks a bit out of it. She's not looking at the camera. She was caught having a mojito on a train once, so perhaps she was pissed. I don't know, but. Look, I'm personally very happy to see the end of Diane Abbott, but she's probably going to be replaced by someone even more awful and divisive than. And it's ironic, actually, because she'll call everyone else racist and divisive and all these other things, but actually, I think she is the most divisive politician to have sat for such a long time in the House of Commons.
I want to say this in the strongest possible terms. Diane Abbott is a racist. She doesn't like white people. She's made that abundantly clear. Just you put that graphic up there. There we go. That's what the divide and rule. They love white people. Love that. That's racism. You're tarring a group of people based on their skin color with a divide and rule, colonialist, imperialist, slave owner mentality. That's what she's trying to draw. That's what she's trying to insinuate. She then made that comment comparing Jewish people and Irish travelers with people with ginger hair, saying they will never experience racism all their lives. Her words, not mine. She's a racist. She doesn't like white people, and I'm so glad, and I hope to never see her face in politics again.
Yeah, and I also think she's got an inferiority complex, because people that keep speaking about racism, they have an inferiority complex. They're not actually happy with themselves. Look, I'm Iranian, I'm Persian, I'm deeply proud of my Persian roots. I wouldn't be any other race. And that's why I don't speak about racism, because I'm actually happy with myself. Anytime you find someone that's always screaming racist, they're the ones that are actually not deeply happy with themselves. And I think Diane Abbott is one of them. She's the one that's the racist. She's the one that plays divide and rule. She's the one that always plays identity politics. Anytime anyone throughout her political career criticized her for anything, she always pulled the race card.
Yes.
And again, Sadiq Khan does the same thing. When Sadiq Khan is criticized for something, oh, you're Islamophobic. And same thing with Diane Abbott. I'm just tired of this, you know?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
these
yeah.
people are the racists. People that
Yeah.
always try to play identity politics are the racists, and they suffer from an inferiority complex. They are truly not happy with themselves, because people that are truly happy with themselves, they never race bait.
So I should say that she wanted to retire. These are the reports. She wanted to retire, but Keir Starmer had told the press that she was still under investigation for her comments where she compared what happened to the Jews with being tantamount to having ginger hair and all these other things. It was a bizarre letter that she wrote to The Guardian. I honestly think Diane may well be losing it. And if she is, I obviously wouldn't wish that on anybody, but I don't think you're fit to be a parliamentarian. And she basically, she wanted to retire. This is what the press are saying. She wanted to retire, but she didn't. She wanted to do it as a Labour Party MP. And Sir Keir Starmer was reticent to actually say that she had been given the Labour whip back. And now she's sort of umming and ahhing about it. But I think she will ultimately retire, because I don't think Labour would let her stand again. But it would be very mischievous of Diane if she said, of course I'll retire, and then never actually ultimately did. And she ends up being the candidate for Hackney, because actually, you know, they've left it too late. But we shall see. We'll keep an eye on that one. But I tell you what, folks, I am not optimistic about the future. I'm not optimistic about where we're going as a nation. But I do think that this will all serve just to wind up Labour. This will, I don't mean wind up the party, but wind up our discussion on them. This will all serve as a potent wake-up call, I hope, to the British public that the trajectory we're heading on is inviting. We are being far too tolerant of those who do not wish to tolerate us, who don't wish to tolerate our country, our values, our people. And I think that actually this next election, you'll see all of this come out in full force. The war with Israel and Gaza, that's not going away anytime soon. Mass migration to this country, that's not going away anytime soon. I think there will be another terrorist attack over the next few years. I don't say that with any glee. I say that with sadness in my heart. And I think that things are only going to get worse. But I think because actually the Labour Party will have exacerbated it by a factor of 10, that actually maybe it'll be the kick up the arse that the British public need to actually say we have gone far too far down this rabbit hole and we need to turn back before, frankly, it's too late. Before, as Younes referenced earlier, this is what happened with the revolutionaries in Iran, right? They were able to they infiltrated the Marxists, and then the Marxists were killed and pushed to one side. And, you know, I don't think it's hyperbole to warn people that this could be the trajectory that Britain is on. So, you know, that's Labour brought to a close. But I want to now talk about, I'm going back actually to Nigel Farage. This is a very Nigel Farage heavy podcast. And I do apologise, but he has been absolutely everywhere. And Kit Kat on YouTube, by the way, says, chin up, Darren. It's a global agenda. It must fall. So, yes, I'm not meaning to sound like a miserable sod. I would consider myself to be quite optimistic, but I'm not very for the next 5 years at least. That's all I'm saying. Right. But Nigel posted this video. Let's have a listen.
So tomorrow I'm doing question time. First time for about 5 years. Number 37, I think it is. I'm filling in a form, name, address, phone number, email. That's fine, I can live with that. Do you agree to this email address being used for the purposes of clause 13 below? Diversity monitoring. Goodness gracious me, they want to know about my sexuality. Well, I'm going to keep that very private. Ethnicity. There's my answer. It's a big no. Go to hell.
Yeah.
So he's doing question time tomorrow, right? And I want to, before you comment, I just want to play another video because the BBC clearly didn't know what they were doing when they booked this woman. But that's the BBC there, just to reiterate, that's the BBC asking Nigel to give across all of his information so they can tick off their diversity and inclusion checkbox list. This is DEI in action at the BBC, our public broadcaster, that we're all forced to fund. The Conservatives should have scrapped DEI when they had the chance. But this woman She warmed my heart. Have a listen to her.
At what stage does the panel and people think this country has had enough? That we should close the borders, completely close the borders, because it's got to the stage now is there's no education, schooling, infrastructure. It's enough. We are sinking. Surely someone's got to see common sense and say enough is enough. You've got people flooding into this country that cannot speak English. I've come from London. In the National Health Service, everything's written in different languages. How much is that costing? How much is it costing for the interpreters? Sorry, madam, how much is it costing for the interpreters? I was in hospital last week. The interpreter never turned up for the people who couldn't speak English. She was paid. They all had to go on, and all the radiologists stood around doing nothing. What sort of country is allowing this? What sort of country is allowing this tourism to come in? You arrive in a plane, you get free service, you can have your babies, you can just carry on having it all for free. Why haven't they got points set up in the hospitals and you pay like you do in every other country you go to? You wouldn't turn up in America and be allowed to go for free.
Let's let the
So I'm guessing my bottom dollar that the BBC would not have allowed that woman to appear as a member of the audience had they known that she was going to actually say all of this. But good for her. I thought that was very brave because no doubt it's a BBC audience. They would have all been, you know, packed to the rafters with liberals who would have been against that and would have actually been for the kind of BBC diversity and inclusion checklist that Nigel was sent for ahead of his appearance tomorrow on BBC Question Time. But Alex, this just shows the BBC up for what it is, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. Sad to say, what used to be a global powerhouse for British values is now just trouncing out anything that comes out of America to appease again this ridiculous woke agenda that serves no purpose in the world whatsoever than to demean a small group of people who just want to have privacy and dignity. It really is something else. And I saw after Nigel announced he was going on BBC Question Time, a lot of Labour MPs losing their rag over this.
Furious.
They were furious, and I laughed. I just laughed, and all these lefties going nuts. You've done yourself a disservice, BBC, because they live in such an echo chamber that they don't think that people like Nigel Farage actually exist in the real world. Well, have a look at the polling numbers. Have a look at those lefties and tell me whether you think those people exist. Reform, that never used to be a political party up until, 2 years ago, is the third highest polling party in the country. They've overtaken what used to be a governing party, the Liberal Democrats. If we had a fair system in Britain, they would form part of the opposition with the Tories. Possibly 50-50 at the rate they were polling a few weeks ago.
Younes?
Yeah, so that's one of the hopes that I have, because let's face it, most likely Labour's going to win. However, if Reform and Conservatives manage to get enough seats, they can form a coalition if Labour doesn't get the majority. And that would be a good solution, because Reform and Conservative would actually push us further to the right than the Conservatives.
Yes.
But then the problem I have at the moment, the way polling is looking, as you said, Labour is leading by 20 points, which is scary for me. You know, that's overwhelming majority at this point in time. We have to try to fight back. We got less than 6 weeks, I guess. I would really like to meet Nigel Farage one day. I don't know if any of you guys have any contact with him or if you know him.
I know him very well. Yeah. I mean, I work with him. Yeah. You must meet him. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll do that. Definitely. Did you like the other woman, Younes, the BBC Question Time woman? Do you think the BBC meant to have her on the show?
No, I don't think so. But this is the problem. I feel like at the end of it, they're like, "Oh, look at that racist woman in the crowd." But
I know. Yeah, try to shut her up. Yeah.
Yes, she has the same exact stance and view that I have. The NHS is crumbling. I tried to book an appointment in mid-April, and they told me I have to wait 4 weeks for an appointment. I was like, I'll be fine by then. I don't really need to. You know, sometimes it goes 2 weeks just for a telephone for a doctor to call you back. And, you know, the British society is crumbling. We need strong leadership. And the same thing is happening to some extent in America. But, you know, one of the comments said it's a global agenda. And I really do think this is a globalist agenda. And it's us against the globalists. And the
Yeah.
globalists want this to happen. And in that case, they can control everything. They can impose control on everything, and they would erode national identities. And they would
Yes.
make one state, one super state, one European state, one American. And that's what they're trying to do by mixing everything together, A, to impose control, and to B, to erode national identities.
Nathan on YouTube says economic migration is a scam, reiterating what Alex said earlier. Richard says Tory and Reform unite the centre right. I wish we could, Richard. I really, really do. I don't think it's going to happen this time around. And Kit Kat says, if we don't identify the enemy, it will keep beating us with the invisible stick. Yes, it's hitting us quite hard, Kit Kat, with the invisible stick. I want to end on a fun one. Oh, sorry, Alex. Yeah.
So I was just going to say, can you bring up Robert Pierre's comment quickly?
Robert Pierre.
He says, I wish people would stop saying... Yeah, would stop saying Labour are going to win. It's almost manipulation of the population. Do you know what? I'm glad that people are saying this because it's going to get Conservative voters out, whether you're voting for Reform or the Tories. It's going to get you out because the fear of Labour winning is what's going to inspire people to get off their backsides. I know a lot of people are disillusioned, but this message that Labour are going to trounce the Tories is hopefully scaring a lot of us into actually going to the ballot box who wouldn't have been bothered before. Sorry, that's my last 10 pence.
Yeah. Good. Mike.
Trump, sorry, just one last point. The same thing happened in 2016 with Trump because the New York Post said that Hillary Clinton has an 85% chance of winning.
Correct.
And Trump only had 15. And Trump ended up winning. So it might work against them, this whole thing. Oh, Labour's going to win, Labour's going to win, Labour's going to win. And then Labour voters would relax and the Conservatives and the Reform voters would vote just in case. So you never know.
Yeah. Can I end with a fun one?
Yes, absolutely.
The fun one is I bash the BBC, so it's only fair that I bash ITV as well. This woman, you know, Inaya Aloko, she is a commentator, and ITV have just signed her up for. She was a female footballer, but she's been signed up as a commentator now. And ITV have announced that she will be the commentator throughout the Euros this summer. So if you're watching the Euros, any of England playing this summer, you get to see NI commentating throughout. And I said, if she was a white female commentator saying maybe white people are better, you can bet your bottom dollar that these gigs wouldn't materialise and ITV wouldn't be rolling out the commentary red carpet. But here's what she had to say.
My issue with anti-DEI discourse is that the starting point is extremely racist.
3% of the UK population are black, and 8.1% of TV characters on screen are black. Is the assumption then that black people are just 2.5 times better?
Maybe. You have to talk about your own experience. I have to talk about my own experience.
I'm talking about facts.
No,
I'm talking about 2.5
times. What you've done is you've highlighted...
some black people are there, not necessarily because of talent, and the proof of that is the percentages. Unless black people are just better.
But some white people have been given opportunities without...
20, 30 years ago, yes.
I mean, let's talk about... Well, no, you can't say that.
But I can because of the stats.
No, maybe they're just the best.
Right, well then I agree with you, and let's all scrap the policies then. Let's
go
around to the audio production, let's go to the TV, scrap the policies.
Andrew, you're being facetious now. But you say that from a place of privilege. Because...
Well, hang on, but you're the Sky Sports presenter, and I'm not allowed to sign things in bookshops.
Well, I've earned it.
We both earned it.
Oh my God!
And I didn't, and I had to do all this myself, and that's because of our skin color. So, and yet you're calling me the privileged one.
I think it's very racist to assume that. It's extremely racist, and if there's one thing I can say on this podcast.
Yeah. So then. So I just want. So right, she says that I got here on talent. She says I got here on talent, and I said Inai is obviously at ITV for the Euros on talent. I mean, this analysis is second to none. Have a listen to this very short clip of her giving analysis on. I believe it was on ITV, not Sky Sports, because she's also got a Sky Sports gig. She's a very well remunerated woman. Here's what she had to say as part of her talented, award-winning commentary.
He's the top scorer for Brazil.
over the last 2 years. You know, he's got a great record, 19 goals in 40 appearances. You know, do the math on that. It's one goal a game, pretty much. He's the top scorer for
19 goals in 40 games. Do the math. It's 1 goal a game. I don't think that is correct, actually. And she says she got there. She's commentating for ITV at the most important football event of the year, football being our national sport. She's there on talent. She's there on merit, is what she said to Andrew Gold, formerly of the BBC, with his brilliant podcast. Younes, she is not there on talent. She is about as thick as 2 short planks.
Diversity and inclusion are one of the biggest.
Oh, hang on, Younes, we've lost that audio there. Repeat that, Younes. We lost that audio for a second.
Yeah, sorry, my headphones
yeah.
just ran out of charge. Let me put them back on. Sorry.
Don't worry. Alex, you go first.
All good?
Well,
No, it's okay.
yeah,
So basically,
Go ahead.
diversity and inclusion is a scam because we've replaced a form of discrimination with another form of discrimination. It hasn't actually solved the issue. And you see this all the time that you get, and look, I've done a bit of acting in the past, and I'm considered BAME, Black Ethnic Minority. And I actually don't go gigs because of my skin color. There was no such thing for white people. And it's not just on TV. It's in films. It's in series.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
everywhere. It's in Hollywood. They put a black actor. It's as if they have to put a black actor. If they don't put a black actor, then they're a racist. And in this environment, meritocracy doesn't matter.
Yes.
No one's there based on merit. And that's why I don't like diversity and inclusion. Because you're either going to get the job because you're black or gay or a woman or whatever, and it basically erodes. If 10 black people can get the job done and they're the best at it, so be it.
Yeah.
At the same time, if 10 white straight men can get the job done the best, and if that's the meritocratic way, then so be it that way. This idea that you have to get from a pool and you have to have diversity and inclusion, then you're not going to employ the best talents into your company, into your institutions, because you're giving these extracurricular requirements that have nothing to do with the job, and it erodes meritocracy.
Yeah, I mean, Alex J says this was a girl that said she got dropped from the England team because she was black, wasn't it? I mean,
Yep.
I'm not. Is that right? Is that correct?
I believe it is actually.
Yeah. It does. That is ringing a bell. I can't say I follow female football very prolifically.
Yeah, same. You know, this woman is as thick as mince. She really is. And, do you know what really angers people is she's an extremely privileged position, but she makes herself out that she's had to work her backside off to get there.
Yeah.
We all know the reason why she's on there, because she's a black woman, and that they need to tick a box to have a black woman on TV. This is absolutely it, right?
But Alex, that makes you racist. You can't say that. You're a racist.
Of course it does. I'm a racist, I'm an Islamophobe, whatever it is. But the reality is that's true. And we all know it because there's far better commentators out there than her. And this is not the only video of her gaffing up something. Go on Google. There's a whole trolley load of things that she said that make absolutely no sense live on TV while commentating. You're telling me she's the
getting
best
paid a
can
pretty
find.
penny. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And before she know it, she'll be saying she'd walked out of her job because she's not paid the same as Gary Lineker. It is absolutely bizarre. And you know what? The British public hate it. And it won't last forever because one day someone's going to come and make all this nonsense illegal. I hope they do. I hope they make DEI completely illegal, because the only way capitalism thrives is in a meritocratic environment. Otherwise, you might as well start
Talent and
injecting yourself
competition.
with the opposite of bleach. Yeah, but the opposite of whatever bleach does to your skin, because that's going to be the only way you can get a leg up. And the people who really need the leg up in this country, actually supported by facts, are white, straight, young boys. They are the ones who need our help. They're the ones who actually need a leg up in society. And I'd like to see them looked after a little bit more.
Yeah, because I mean, Younes, she says actually in that clip with Andrew Gold, she says that white people have it too good and they just get jobs for being white. I just don't think that's true in 2024.
No, it's not true at all. And what's funny is that recently you had a lot of female footballers coming and saying, "Oh, we should get paid same as the men." And then again, not only that stupid, they don't generate as much revenue. So how can you
No.
expect to get paid? You know, Megan Rapinoe campaigned for this. Even, oh, good, you know, the USA female team is a great team. They won the World Cup, but they don't generate as much money as the men's team. You know, and look, the thing is, there's a lot of female commentators on male football, but there's not a lot of male commentators in female football. So again, there's a
No.
disparity there. And now you're telling me, you know, DEI is not a scam. It is a scam. It's just designed to virtue signal and to pander to minorities and say, oh, look at us, we're so understanding of you, and we have you involved. But at the end of the day, it's not meritocratic. And as you said, capitalism thrives on meritocracy. And you're
Yeah.
not going to
There's a
get the
really
best
funny
product if you are not meritocratic.
There's a really
Go ahead.
funny video. I encourage people to go search for it. It's a news presenter talking about women's basketball in America. And she goes on to say that the reason why they don't make enough money is because people hate lesbians, and most of the team, like 40% of them are black lesbians. And she goes on to say that's why people aren't tuning in. And it's like, this is absolute nonsense.
No.
You don't see men on the football pitch, and you don't see them disclosing their sexuality. Whilst I hate all these LGBT campaigns saying more men need to come out on football. No, they don't. Let them just play football. Who gives a crap about their sexuality? I don't give a crap about your skin color or your sexuality. I'd want you to be the best football player on the pitch if you're playing for my team. And that's as simple as that. That's what football fans want. They don't care. They don't care.
And on that lesbian point, I can tell you right now that watching two lesbians roll about on each other, that is right up the street of many straight men. So, you know, I don't think it's the problem that they're lesbians. It's just that, you know, the game, maybe they just think the game isn't as entertaining, and that's fine. They're allowed to think that.
Yep.
Actually, someone on Twitter says that you should be on GB News, Younes, and so they've missed you on GB News. If you go on to Reason's YouTube channel and you look at some of the latest videos, Younes is on there. The full interview is on there from the other day, and we will have Younes back on GB News. I promise you that. But I just want to finish with this one comment, which I have now lost again, and it was a lovely comment. And it was from someone that I think thought that we were ending things, or perhaps they were ending earlier on. Well, actually, Nathan says it's going to get better, folks. I think that's a very nice reminder. Things will eventually get better. This too shall pass. There will be light at the end of the tunnel. Kit Kat says, thank you, gentlemen, for listening to us as we listen to you. Not at all. Thank you for being with us and for supporting us. 6,000 viewers, Alex, 6,000 viewers.
Yes, I think it's our record, actually. I think this is our record, just so you know. So thanks for tuning in, everybody.
And one of the comments earlier said, thank you for that discussion. I've lost it, but it said, thank you for that discussion. Very reasoned of you all. Thank you for doing it. If anyone would like to get involved with Reasoned, please do go to our website. There's an email contact form there. If you can support us, please consider doing so, and make sure that you click subscribe on YouTube, because liking and subscribing to our channel really does help us, keep the lights on and keep going and doing what we're doing. So yes, Younes, thank you very much for giving up your time this evening and being part of this. And Alex, as ever, thank you for doing this. And for all the viewers at home for watching, and we'll see you next week.
See you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.